back to Business Intelligence. My name is Dr. Wei Chun-Wan, and I'm here with Joey DiGangi.
Hey, everybody.
Have you thought about why people are generally so overwhelmed by the phrase of digital transformation, especially business owners? Because it is a daunting task to think about how to transform your business digitally, right?
Right.
And I think, we talked about how business owners need to be adaptive, but undoubtedly, if I could afford not to be adaptive, I don't want to change, right? So we've recently talked about this in using the Microsoft Office suite.
Right.
Like we have to pay an annual subscription fee just so that we could keep using the tool, be that Excel, Word, or PowerPoint.
Right.
But if you come to think about it, the alternatives of Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, they do exist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's free of charge. I mean,
Right.
talking about Google suite, the service suite on Google, there's Google Doc, Google Sheet, and Google Slides.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are positioned to replace Microsoft Office suite.
Oh, yeah, and they offer, everything on the drive. So that substitutes a service like Dropbox.
Right.
And comparatively by price, it's not even close.
And
Even
you
if
could apply for a free account. You don't
Right.
necessarily have to pay Google anything. You could still get access to those tools.
Right.
Yet they couldn't replace Microsoft's business model.
No.
Microsoft, as a matter of fact, Microsoft is still charging people away.
Yeah, they haven't really changed their
So-
pricing strategy.
Exactly. So it goes to show how people are not willing to change something that they're already used to.
Yeah.
But digital transformation is something that we cannot avoid from talking because it's so relevant and eminent at this point. Digital transformation relates mostly to how you utilize data. And quite honestly, for all the business owners that we've had conversations with, most of them don't even realize that's an issue. And to me, that's a big issue.
Right, right. And I think there's kind of almost like a misconception in the marketplace that when you see digital transformation, I think the first instinct is that it means transforming every aspect of your business. But realistically, when we have that conversation about digital transformation with a client, it's finding one or two key processes that we can either enhance, replace with something better.
Right.
But you're not trying to revolutionize the entire business. You're trying to take an iterative approach to improve key workflows.
So you're talking about starting small. And
Yeah.
I like that approach because people generally think that, a transformation, it's such a
Everything.
big scale. It's
Yeah.
everything. And it's going to affect my livelihood and lifeblood. Not necessarily. There are small things that you could do. And for those people that still think that it's totally avoidable, that we don't have to talk about transformation or digital transformation in your business, that I believe is a wrong mentality because
Also, yeah.
I hate to start yet another episode by saying, oh, because of a pandemic, or well, this is the new norm. We should treat it as a normalcy at this point.
Yeah.
That's a given. I mean, we're living in a post-pandemic moment.
Right.
During the pandemic, the digital transformation pace has been accelerated,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
And that's important too. The pandemic was an accelerant, not a cause.
No.
It's not. It didn't start with the pandemic. It's not going to end with the pandemic. The trends were already there. I mean, look at the softwares that we've now everybody's become an expert in, like the Google Suite, like Zoom.
Right.
Those all predate the pandemic. They just became infinitely more valuable during the crazy times, and they're now more people are used to them afterwards. But they were there. The trend was already there in the marketplace. That just accelerated and brought everybody up to speed.
Right. And if you don't believe what we're talking about, I mean, go on LinkedIn or go on Indeed.com and you search some newly innovative titles in mid-sized or large-sized corporations. We added so many different titles to the C-suite positions.
Right, right.
You have Chief Data Officer, Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Digital Officer. They're all related to digital transformation, right? And whether you like it or not, you have unutilized digital resources within your organization and you just don't know about it. And oftentimes the data idea is related to, you know, something that happens in real time. And because the nature of the data, for example, like your sales data,
Right.
that happens in real time, because of the nature of the data is so big and unstructured, you don't even think how analyzing that could benefit your whole entire business process. Or most likely, it's probably because it's too costly for you to think about how you utilize the big unstructured and real-time data, so that you miss out the opportunity to make that transition and to leverage it so that your business process could be benefited.
Right. Especially if you have all your day-to-day operation, you have all of these other things that you need to focus on, trying to cultivate a new skill and learn how to take advantage of all this influx of information. That's a challenge.
Right. So there are several things I want to talk about. Right. There is robotic automation, or robotic process automation. People call it RPA. There is machine learning and artificial intelligence tools. Like we've talked about a little bit about artificial intelligence and machine learning tools in the past in our episodes. Robotic process automation is something that people generally don't understand what that means, right? And you, again, follow the traditional ways of dealing with your business. You think about, what type of personnel that you have to hire to maintain your operations.
Right.
And you spend little or no time in thinking about whether or not there are tools or software solutions that exist that could help you, save the personnel cost. And so with all these tools available that you don't know about, actually there are solutions that exist to help you manage the data, uncover new insights about the customers to better your business process, reduce human errors, and basically generally just drive efficiency to improve your business operations. And that to me is a big missed opportunity yet again. I'm looking at this report that was recently published by KPMG, one of the big four public accounting firms, that talked about the train of digital transformation. So after the pandemic, they actually did a survey. They try to solicit and gather insights from 315 CEOs at large global companies, and that includes 100 CEOs in the United States. Guess what? Majority of the CEOs identify digital transformation is a relevant trend, particularly in the post-pandemic moments. The survey was done in the end of 2020. So here it is. 74% of the respondents think that the digitization of operations and the creation of next generation operating model is necessary, right? And there's also, again, 75% of the respondents out of the 315 CEOs that they survey recognize that the creation of a seamless digital customer experience is necessary.
Right.
And there's also 66% of the CEOs that responded to the survey argue that the creation of new workforce model with human workers augmented by automation and artificial intelligence is necessary and inevitable. Right? So what does that mean? You see all these large companies that are focusing on this new digital train, and they're willing to invest in those digital trains. And you as a business owner, if you're not following suit, if you're still living in the mentality that, oh, you know what, as long as I get comfortable with the existing tools that I'm using right now, I'd be set. That to me is a very, very dangerous idea.
Right.
And in the post-pandemic world, again, what is the most important thing? You have all these data and tools available to you, yet you don't have the time to explore all these possible solutions that'll benefit your business process. Where do we start, right? Joey, do you want to share a couple of client examples or case studies that we have come across, and that maybe give people a little bit of idea of how small they could start with respect to digital transformation?
Yeah, so I think there like you said, there are a few. So let's look at one company that works with a lot of other business clients, and let's look at another that works primarily with consumers. So when we have a company that they work with consumers a lot, think about all of the different places that you interact with your audience. You have your Twitter, you have your Instagram, you have your Facebook, you have email, you have maybe, in their case, a chat bot on the website, all of these different places. Now, one of the things when you were talking about KPMG's report that I think really needs to be highlighted, my favorite word in that one of the last stats that you read off was augmenting the workforce.
Right.
Not replacing, not
Right.
ever to the point where we can create such a robust chat bot that's going to completely relieve any customer service personnel. No, the point is trying to make people's jobs easier. Help the humans you have behind the scenes process all of the data more efficiently and have an easier time accessing it. That's another part of it. So in their case, this particular client that we were serving, they had probably about 10 different touch points with 10 different logins. And it was, they did a really good job of meeting the customer where they are. Like, that's not to be discouraged. Like, taking advantage of all these systems that are in existence, you need to do that because that is now the expectation of the standard consumer. If I reach you on Twitter, I want you tweeting right back to me. If I email you, same thing. I want to always be able to reach you wherever you are. That's good or bad. That's the reality of it. Right. So they have all of these different touch points. And so what they really needed was they needed a system in place that processes every different inquiry that they receive and being able to share it in one place that makes it really easy for you to understand who submitted it, where was it submitted, so I can go back, address the problem wherever it's been, or even compliment when a customer says thank you, but address the comment, the question, anything like that, wherever it was submitted in as close to real time as possible. So in our case, what we did to fulfill that was we built a dashboard that aggregates all of this different data coming in, and then reports to the relevant personnel or multiple personnel at the same time. Hey, here's where you need to go address this. And again, that's augmenting the your existing team.
So you actually mentioned two dimensions, right? So there is one part of it that is to deal with the process, right? So you are trying to streamline the process, handling the 10 different touch points of their social media accounts, just to do the job to serve customers better.
Right.
And there's another dimension that is building the dashboard, because building the dashboard means that you are providing intelligence to improve upon your existing business process for future references. Right. And unfortunately, for a lot of this, particularly small to mid-sized businesses, they focus way too much on how they generate revenue and forget about preserving capabilities and capacity for them to grow exponentially into the future, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen, we're talking about mid-sized business that have personnel anywhere between 50 to 70 people. And these organizations, they have, data being housed in different divisions and different departments. They forget about the importance of integrating all these data points. They don't centralize all the data.
Right.
So by the point when you want to grow, you do not have the resources to revamp the process for all divisions. And to me, that's very dangerous and risky.
Yeah, and that kind of, we talk about this all the time, but the difference between information and intelligence. Correct. The first step is getting all of that information into one place because you have it coming from all these different touch points. But then the second part is how do you make it actionable? How do you make it, something that you can use if it takes you 20 minutes to sort out an immediate customer complaint, that's not really helpful.
So we started this episode by talking about how digital transformation, the idea of digital transformation could be overwhelming. Right. And we also talked about how you could potentially start small. Now take this one example, right? So we serve a lot of clients that are in the paper-heavy industry. Right? Yeah. They're in the professional service industries. And they have a lot of paperwork that need to be signed, right? Right. But they don't have the right tools. They're still relying upon the documentation, paperwork and all that. Just for very simple signature, you don't have the tool to deal with that electronically, right? And during the pandemic, that actually has caused, particularly challenges because people cannot, meet with one another,
Right.
and how do you collect the paperwork? And if talking about trying to be contactless, signing paper is definitely not one procedure that you wanna continue doing. There are tools that exist, very cheap too. I mean, people heard about DocuSign. I mean, DocuSign is pretty expensive, but there are alternatives.
Right.
Like for example, DocuSign by KDM Mobile or Pentadoc or HelloSign.
Right.
They're not too expensive, and we're talking about less than $100 a year. You have one account that handles pretty much all signatures that you need. That by itself is a tool that could enhance your workflow, yet bring you, one step closer to accomplish the goals of transforming your business digitally.
Right.
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 And not only that, I mean, I remember when I was working in the professional service industry, preserving documents is always a top priority because you want to make sure that you have the capabilities to handle future audits. You want to make sure that whenever the clients come back to you, you have the right documentation to show them that that you established records
Right.
Of the service. But right now, everything is different. You have cloud services everywhere.
Yeah.
But do you have the infrastructure ready to integrate with the cloud services that exist? That is the problem, right? And if you right now are still thinking about, how to start, you really are already late in the game.
Yeah. So what would we say to that client? We would say, identify, a key process. So in the two examples that you and I just gave, one was how do we connect with our customers better? The other was how do we get more contracts signed more efficiently?
Correct.
We're not saying go reinvent your business. We're not saying, everything has to go in with, out with the old, in with the new. We're saying find some areas that could be faster, survey the technology that exists and see if there's a simpler solution.
Right.
That's really where that conversation starts. And you might find that, if you're in an industry that really hasn't seen a lot of change in the, past several years, maybe most of it can be augmented. Maybe you're in an industry that is a little bit more, technologically savvy, and there's one or two things internally that you can just do a little bit more efficiently. But start with just identifying those key workflows and kind of build from there. That's how that transformation process really needs to start.
And don't get me wrong, there will always be internal struggles. When you're trying to deploy new solutions, there will always be people that are not used to the idea, and they get overwhelmed, right? So for example, take the electronic signatures industry or service as an example. That is a growing business, right? So you have, all these service providers trying to get a share of the market because that's what's needed at this point. I mean, people want to use the electronic signature service, especially after the pandemic. But there are people that argue, how about legal signatures, electronic signatures? They don't carry the same legal requirements as the paper signatures. You want to talk about notary? Like how did notaries work during the pandemic?
Yeah, so that we encountered a couple of times. It's interesting. I mean, the more we found out about, the more we realized that the regulations have not and probably never will be always up to speed with the technology available.
Nope.
In this particular segment, notaries are something that there's every state has its own requirements. So already off the bat, you're dealing with potentially, if you're a U.S. based company, 50 different or as many as 50 different sets of regulations you have to watch for. But if you're a notary, by definition, it needs to be in person. But as we found in certain states during the pandemic times, they were either lifting or changing some of those requirements, so work could continue. So you can still notarize documents in a safe and legally enforceable way, while also not having to put different people's health at risk by meeting in person. So already they were in that awkward situation.
Exactly.
And then that industry is starting to catch up. That's another example of the pandemic accelerating the change. It wasn't. If you ask a notary, and we did talk to a couple notaries, they were saying, we've been trying to push for this for some time. Like that, still the conversation predates the pandemic, but the pandemic sped it up.
Absolutely. And for people that worry about the legality, I mean, again, starting small, right? I mean, there are certain signatures. For example, we're talking about process, right? how do you digitize the process using the tools available? As simple as utilizing electronic signature service to deal with the legality. I mean, people talk about they worry the whether the signatures meet the legal requirements. Well, start small.
Right.
How about expense report? How about reimbursement process? Your internal reimbursement process. That by itself, you could utilize electronic signature.
Right.
Right. And then, so where do we come in? Well, you know what? That's just the first step. How do you integrate electronic signature service to benefit your entire business process? When we come back, we're going to give you more specific examples to talk about, how utilizing the integration and combining all these different services could benefit your business process. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. So we left off, we were talking about this whole idea of digital transformation and some of the different ways to implement depending on where in the journey you're at. And then kind of one of the other questions that I think comes up a lot when we speak with clients and when we start that conversation is, where do we stand to benefit? Where is that going to be, realized? Where does that come into play?
As you grow your business, and it's inevitable that you oftentimes focus on the top line, right? So you want to enhance your revenue position. But please know this. Once your revenue position is enhanced to a level that's sustainable, the cost of goods sold is always going to be there, right?
Right.
Your focus is not so much on the gross profit. You want to bring the money to the bank, right? So the bottom line is important, right? You want to gatekeep the bottom line. However, if you have some basic accounting training, you should know that what affects the bottom line is the operating expenses, right? So how do you handle the customer service? How do you handle the revenue come in? How will you handle it will dictate how much of a bottom line that you have left, right? And I think the missing point is the operational efficiency piece. If you have a bloated up operating expenses, you're not going to have too much of a bottom line.
Right. So we could look at sales generation as an example of one of those different operational workflows. So if you've really worked over time to build a strong brand for yourself, you have a steady number of inbound clients coming in, or customers, depending on if you're B2B or B2C, the next thing you need to look at is, of all of these potential customers I have coming through, how many can I process? How quickly can I process? And how do we get them to conversion as efficiently as possible? And I think that's one of the areas that we'll find a lot of clients are, there's revenue left on the table. If you can only, if you only have a couple personnel dedicated to it, you're limited by their hours. I mean, it's the amount of time that they can put in and work with all of these different potential business, opportunities. That's pretty much where you're going to be capped at.
Right.
And so one of the things that will help implement for them is a more efficient and automated system of qualifying those leads. Right. So you have them come in. Let's go back to this idea of the funnel. At the very top, maybe you have 100 people coming in as potential clients. How do you figure out who is going to go down to that next level? Who's just kind of peeking around your website, wanting to see what's in there, digitally window shopping, and who's a more serious customer. Right. You want to eliminate that first level as quick as possible, so then you can dedicate all of your time and energy towards the people that make it down further along that level. Have those conversations with them, whether it's through email, phone call, in-person meeting, however you do your business. But start having those more meaningful conversations as quick as possible, and eliminate those that are not quite ready to engage your business. And then from there, who's going to make it further down all the way to the step of conversion.
So what you describe sounds all great, right? But it's also daunting to think about, because if you were to break down what you just said into several pieces, there is identifying who are interested